Yo, 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 what's popping, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Podicast right here at House of Wines by SMCG Wines, okay? They are right here at the CBD, right behind the Protea Hotel. All you have to do when you're walking in from the side in the parking lot, you walk into the mall and then you'll be able to see it immediately to your left, okay? Now, this is where you can come through, you can do some wine tasting, you can actually purchase some wine bottles as well. And the really dope thing about it is it's wines that some of you have probably never seen before, because usually, you know, we're buying the same wines, Drosti Hofu, Kantlenyana, Roman Hofu. Yo, this is a chance for you to at least upgrade, you know, your love for wine. They have wines from as many as 10 countries, and I'm talking Europe, I'm talking Bonobo Spain, Bonobo Italy. There's a whole lot of them. So this, you know, you can flex on a different level. Okay, so just come through. You can come through with a crew of your friends. You can come through for the tasting, and you can also be able to purchase the bottles. They're not as expensive as you might think. I mean, one of the finest bottles that they got out here that I always have is like the Ara, ARRA. You can actually have it for about $195. Okay, so the pricing is very, very reasonable. Today, I'm having myself. It's a red wine. The guys are having such a cool time watching me try to be a wine connoisseur, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there because in 90 in Nabuto. But yeah, that's not all we have in store for you. We have a wonderful, wonderful guest. As you know, over the weekend was the party congress for the Botswana Democratic Party, and yeah, they were at a crossroads. A lot of people thought there was going to be mayhem going on. But you know, they finally got that result. We're going to be talking a little bit about that, and we're going to be talking about the president of the BDP, the newly crowned president of the BDP. We're going to talk a little bit about all the other things that have been happening as far as our political landscape in BW. You know, former President Ski versus KFC at the local government and traditional affairs department. So we have all of that lined up, and we have someone really, really awesome to talk to us about it. Now, Victor Baatweng is a prominent Botswana-based journalist. He's also a columnist. He has written for international outlets like All Africa, the Daily Maverick, the Africa Report, and he is currently with the Sunday Standard newspaper, and he tackles economic, political, and social issues affecting Botswana and the broader Southern African region. So we usually have Spencer Mogapi to come through here, but now because his his understudies, the Kung Fu is elevating Wawana, and they see Botswana from a whole different perspective as well. So this is why it was so awesome for us to be able to get Mr. Victor Baatweng to come talk to us about all of these issues. Without further ado, welcome to the Podicast. Welcome, Mr. Victor Baatweng.
Yes.
What's up, Papa?
No, I'm all right.
Why are you not indulging? Why don't you like wine?
I have my own intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a committed relationship here.
With coffee?
Yes. It's actually mutual. It's two-way. I know people usually say, orata coffee, but I know Hori also likes me, yeah.
No doubt. No, yeah. I absolutely love that, because most people, and some people, and then the party turns into something else. So yeah, discipline all the way. You've written some really, really interesting articles. I saw a couple of them here before we get into our discussions about what's currently going on in BW, the new government, you know, the new opposition and all of that. You wrote a whole piece called An Open Letter to Tsabana. Come on, dog. How do we get to that? How do you write an open letter to Tsabana? I see here it was about you addressing Botswana's fortified food supplement, Yone Tsabana, and urging stakeholders to explore its potential beyond nutrition, including its role in economic development and local manufacturing. You think Tsabana is something we can export?
Yeah, I thought that to start with, the motivation comes from the fact that most of the time we just throw words around value chain and all that, but we don't actually get to realize the potential that is there. So some 2-3 years ago, I got to make time and do a bit of research, just a desktop research, to see how Tsabana finally, when they get to a local clinic, and then I got to realize that they use soya beans, they use mabele and a few other ingredients. And then I got to realize that our import bill, Botswana, equal hodimo. But we are also saying we are not diversified as a country. We also have huge lands. Almost every family in Botswana le masimo. So if we look at that, that's the Haribuaga value chain. If you take Tsabana just as an example, there's one area where you can actually say there's a plant called Molepole, Sila Tsabana. And then how you go Shoshong, there's a guy who's doing mabele. How you go Lenzo, there's a guy who's doing sunflower, which is one of the ingredients. If you take all these 3, 4, 5 things, kitty value chain. And then there's a guy in between who's going to transport this final product, but even the raw materials to the plant in Molepole. So when I wrote that letter to Tsabana, I was actually telling Tsabana to say, okay, you've been here, we know that you produce a company, one. Maybe that company, it's a soya beans from Zambia, it's a sunflower elsewhere, in a government tender to supply the clinic. But what if we were to bring it up to farmers and everyone else to be involved in the production this product, but not just Tsabana, but any other product or service who expand their value chain as a way of actually moving away from diamonds, because now the biggest story that we should be carrying in Botswana ke gore economy ga di resente government ga na madi. Our foreign reserves, we know this past year how you go topong in hot topic, and all the like. But this is one potential area that you could look in.
Definitely. Now that you mention it, because I think a lot of us never really thought about it. We just thought about it as free food. And like, that's really what value chain is. To empower Rabatu in different places so that, did you take this up? Like, when you write these articles, do you think that the people who actually make decisions in the country?
Well, there are some leaders who would actually reach out and say, I saw, like I know the leader of opposition in November when they got in office. He's one of the people that I wrote to, because ever since the new government in November, every week except this past Sunday, I had an open letter to either an individual, either to one of the letters I wrote was to PODI. College of Arts in the college in PODI. And in that letter, what I was telling PODI College was that the potential that is there. For example, we are saying our diamonds are not selling more Botswana. And we forget that we are just looking at the 2.3 million Botswana. We don't look at the potential Ghana, we don't look at the potential Nigeria or Santen. So in that letter to PODI College, I was telling PODI College, PODI College, you are producing graduates, it's jewelry design. What if we were to get some of the graduates, your college, and then we, through development institutions like Bosida, we partner with them to ensure that they design jewelry from the diamonds. Remember, as part of the DBS deal, Botswana, we are now going to get up to 30% and then ultimately 50%. They are rough diamonds. That means Botswana. So what if we were to say, let's go to PODI College, get the graduates at PODI College who are actually designers. They design through the diamonds. And then we partner with some guy with money in Nigeria or in Santen or in Malawi, whichever country more Africa, as part of the free trade agreement. They set up jewelry stores there. We can have a jewelry store at Airport Junction, at the airport itself, at whatever mall, even at this place where people come for wine. If you have a small corner there, you can have a jewelry. This is a Ramon a diamond ring e le gore e tswa ko jwaneng kana ko rapa. So if you go back to issue ya conversation ya value chain, you actually realize that you have actually tapped in the guy wa college, you have actually tapped in this place early mo go yone, because now they would also retail, they would make use of the other space, say le gore gongwe bana le sone, just selling a diamond. But because they are placing a diamond necklace, they might need security, so they engage a security, and if it's security Botswana, that guy is also benefiting from the value chain. So the whole value chain thing was spoke to that. So like you were saying, some of them, they do respond to say, I saw your letter and then I'll respond, because ideally if they want to respond, being responsible for that section at the newspaper, I could also give them space to say what they're thinking in terms of the proposal that one would have put through an opinion.
No, but shout out. Like, I like that train of thought. Like, even Ronaha here at House of Wines, they have some products from, let's say, it's a Pusha BW. You know, these are locally made cashew nuts. There's also Maumo Craft as well. Lones up here as well. So I think if collaboration, really, if it's every single time we try to collaborate with people who are way, way far away, if we try to collaborate with each other down here, maybe more people will be able to make some money for themselves.
Yeah.
With that said, you have practiced during the former administration and now the new administration. You're never ready. I mean, it's been 6 months. Do you see the new administration much more, I guess, receptive, or is it still the same as before? I think maybe it's a bit too early to be checking, but how do you think, how receptive is the new administration to ideas that maybe journalists put together on paper?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge they have for them is the issue of human resources, because they are still hiring. Yeah, so until a point where maybe they've reached 80-90% of the human resource that they feel they need, it's very difficult to weigh on them whether they are receptive or not, because how
who are they trying to hire? These civil servants, these people in these positions, I get they always be moved around. Why can't they move people around? Yeah,
that's one option they have, but you also need an agency or a head of civil service, maybe very good with talent scouting, because some of these things, the reason why progress in the past, it's because we could not scout for talent and compensate it or pay for it. For example, we have had so many institutions in Botswana, they were set up. This one here fund and this here some banana. Why do you have this? But if you look at it, you realize that, for instance, main mall, Hela Mostra, I think there's a place called the Diamond Square, where these kids there who are doing the juicy, the barista, they are there and all that. If you go there and ask them randomly, how many of them have been approached by government agencies that are supposed to empower them to say, okay, pusha jazz da ka kalawara kana le pusha coffee da mostrate me hapula ena go la tswa da, because galena good infrastructure. How can we help you? Can we move you into that infrastructure? You pay a subsidized fee for 2.5 months, mature, grow, and then go and compete with other cafes out there while we move others. So we need the new government need that kind of person who can then move in, scout for talent, and then start implementing some of the ideas, because it's not everyone else who need to go to government. Some people can just churn out the ideas and distance from where they are and compensate it at distance.
No doubt. You also wrote an open letter to Orapa House. It's been dormant. I think there was also conversation, I don't know whose funeral it was, but one of the former ministers talked about how Orapa House has been sold. It no longer belongs to Batswana. You wrote an open letter to Orapa House. You want to talk a little bit about what you thought could be done with an Orapa House and what the letter was all about?
Yeah, for Orapa House, it was because it's central in the city, and like you said, I've had noticed that it's been there. And now I came to the city, Keta University. So
where did you grow up?
Komau.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's one of the buildings that you actually recognize how it's in Amohaboronu.
Oh, it was in the pictures and the exam papers.
Exactly, yeah. So
yeah, no, I feel
so it's
you.
been there.
Yeah.
Ke kone le gore ditema ne di sotiwa teng di bo di ama hatsing bogologolo partnership ya rona le DBS se tse simologa go ise go nne bo DTCB ba ba ko block 8. So since then ha go sena go nna le manobono ba ko block 8 gore is neglected there. And when I wrote that letter to Rapper House, I was actually saying this is a building ele gore ina le di floors e dintsi. We can actually get a place where we can say this area here the creatives, where you actually have studios where a podcast like this could be set there. Then you would go on the second floor and say this is where the guys Baba Dira and Taylor and Baba Rokang could actually do their art there. You go up, you do ICT, you go Koraki is a tall building with so many places. So it can be an incubation center where the tenants there, they're not actually permanent, but buy a thing is just for the incubation purposes. Same way Leah does with some of these horticultural people baba ko Glen Valley baba incubator for 2-3 years I ithuta go dira ditamati, and then the expectation ke gore ha ile gore ona le masimo ko mashoro o ya ko masimo wa go set up thing and start producing at a higher level of production. So Rapper House was supposed in my thinking is supposed to be for Gaborone in the district to do that. But you can actually have another building in Francistown, another one in Khanzi, another one in Maung. It's government owned, but only for incubation purposes. So that if I want to test your product, or if I want to learn a skill, I know where I can come. You then have a room for academics or research people who can then help them with the issue about bookkeeping and all that, marketing and all that. Because like I said, for instance, those kids babako main mall, we tell Moto very good, is a very good at making coffee, but managerial skills or IT cash flow management. So if you have a Rapper House functional, you then have an office, a guy who can now teach them or who can do bookkeeping for them as a collective, maybe so that when the incubation period ends in 2 or 3 years, also highly well equipped such that he's making nice coffee but also be able to run a successful business.
Damn, dog. Yeah. Yo, I think that deserves a round of applause. You're out here using 100% of your brain. I don't know what other guys are doing. Because like I'm listening to these, and you would think some of these things is why people get into leadership roles. Because like right now we're seeing, okay, there's a new cohort of parliamentarians. There's a new presidency. Do you think the idea is sitting with say, do they exist around there to diversify this economy? Or do you think we're still moving in the same direction that we have been in the past years and nothing has really changed? Or are we asking this question too early?
Yeah, I think I'm going to judge them based on the media appearances that I've seen so far, such that they were really blundering. Got a media appearance, but also what they call the question and answer session at Parliament. Because you could see but I think they made one mistake. I think they made mistake on the former BDP ministers, where they were tempted to actually hire the so-called foot soldiers, a lady private secretary. Now I think we're at a point where our ministers should have considered, in my humble view, to engage the private secretaries. If you are a minister wa gender, for example, and then there's an issue GBV going on, and then you have a national television minister so and so kana issue GBV within 30 an hour what the go studio to go bua ka kgang ga le gore mo shine your portfolio o sa it's either your PS should be very good or your private secretary should be good to prepare you within that hour how you go TV. But even if you are good in your area of expertise, you also need counsel, because this is an emotional issue you address. So I think the mistake they did, some of them anyway, was to hire friends maybe or foot soldiers by UDC. I don't know how they hired them, but some of them have responded. Now, but Batswana ko intsi le bone le bone go ra gore ba clueless because ministers spend most of the time either with private secretaries or the permanent secretaries. So either gono ho mix ya thing ga sone mixology I think ga sone so that's that could be the problem, and that's where they might need to fix, because there was nothing wrong with actually going for someone who's well researched. I itse gore this area ha ile gore ke local government, for instance, I itse gore dikgang tsone tsa bo bogosi gore le di character tsa rona hela I itse di character tsa Botswana gore Motswana ene ha o ya go bua yana, this is what they do, even the level of literacy, because bontsi ya rona re rutegile in the sense that we can just read and we can read and write, but we don't necessarily know how institutions work. There was one embarrassment moment some 4 or 5 years ago on Parliament. One of the field presenters at national television went like, "I interview a minister wa opposition." And I was like, okay, he said that 3 times, and I was like, can't this guy wa minister wa opposition? So
no, I was checking up the updates also during your Congress. Some of the stuff that was being said, or you're supposed to paint a picture for us, but I'm not getting a picture.
Exactly. So you need to have people who work by what is it the institutions even at a personal, because population and everything else is centered around gaps, such that there's a high chance that you know who is doing what where. Like how some is at a close personal level, but you know how they would take the issue high throw it to that. And some of them, that's why they fail, because people know so they just set a trap for them.
I think we're going to start this off now with like the most recent past, which is this past weekend. There was the Botswana Democratic Party as a 41st National Congress that happened in your home village of Maung, and this was marking the first time the opposition. Now, how do you think this particular Congress reflects the party's current state right now?
Yeah. It's actually funny that the kind of BDP was opposition before the first elections.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Break it down. Who were they opposing?
They were opposing Botswana People's Party.
A BPP,
which is now a coalition partner within UDC. So when BPP was formed, Mpho, who was also from Maung, Baneba Kubia ko South Africa, Muso apartheid at the time, no feel Batswana Tatamo. You know those deportations Zahaskis and same thing. Borre Mpho, Michael Dingak, the late BCP president, one of the former BCP president, Michael Dingak. Yes, in fact, Mike went to jail with Mandela, and then Mpho was deported back to Botswana. So when they came back through the help, the then Ghanaian president, former Botswana People's Party, in a threatening to Makua at the time, because no build towards the first elections Botswana. So they then aided Sreza Khama to to form the Botswana Democratic Party. May opposa the BPP, because BPP came in before the BDP. It's unfortunate or fortunate, whichever way or thing, but then the BDP then went and won the first elections and then subsequent elections.
Do you know how though? I mean, they had like more maturity, but the revolutionary struggle, Mandela. Why couldn't they beat these two Oxford guys?
Factionalism.
Was it quite from? Did QKG go to Oxford? He didn't go to Oxford.
He went to that school.
Fort A.
Yeah, Fort A. Yeah.
Okay, so how does a guy from Oxford politics of the region?
Factionalism, Makamu. You remember how all these years Botswana opposition it related towards the elections and Botswana People's Party like Borre KT Mosete 20 people who wrote the national anthem. They had their own BPP. They were about 3 BPPs at the time. By the time now in fact at some point Mpho his own party, Botswana Independence Party. It grew up until gonna le Botswana Alliance movement, le borre le petu Setswaelo and all that, and then they end up ba join the BCP at a later stage after the breakaway go Palapi. But here it was on 2 or 3 accounts. One bane ba alwa within BPP go bogora gore Batswana ba re ga ba bateng opposition. In fact, that's how the Botswana National Front, which is also a partner to on the UDC, was also formed. This Botswana National Front was the then UDC. Ne formiwa gore e unite the opposition ka gore opposition in a lo at the time and go runya di parties tse dintsi from all the corners. So BNF was then later formed to actually be the then UDC. But also the second reason could also be that Seretse was a chief, a powerful tribe, Bangwatu e le gore under Bangwatu we know gore gona le Babirwa, Bakalaka, Batswapong, and those people at the time I could say use the word captured under Bangwatu. So they were voting kana politiki hela e ntšha ne electoral democracy ne le ntšha mo go rona, so rona ne re itse gore the leaders ke dikgosi at the time. So that factor plus also ka kanye because Kgosi Baatweng when I formule BNF gona le re Masire also le as a journalist at the time go rona le influential, and I think the combination ya gagwe le Seretse then took the BDP way they ended up ba winner di top percent.
Let's call the journalist. I just need to throw that out there. So Mpho Balopi has been elected the new BDP president. He's also been former Secretary General and he's also been the Minister of Labor. What leadership style and strategic direction do you think we can expect from him as also being, on the opposition right now? Because it could have been easier if he was, incumbent, but what type of leadership style can we expect from him, especially now that they're coming from the opposition side? Yeah,
I think one of the strengths or the positives if you look at the 2019, 2019, which at the time he was Secretary General at BDP, popular vote at BDP near slightly near in his own account of him being the Secretary General. But also if you look at also gore o na khona go ina dithopo tsa Secretary General at the time ka hana winne ka te wa khona bona gore ke motho ana le bokgoni jwa go at least to get people to vote for him or for his ideals, and that's why he easily won go Maum, but also partially because people can sometimes vote against other people. I think largely my BDP, but feel like the previous leadership at BDP by the national elections. So I think anyone who was closer to power, very proximately close to the power, and I reject you. I think if they had not taken a Balopi, they were likely going to look for someone else.
Let's take him out. Who do you think? Let's just say hypothetically, Balopi was not in there. It's okay, maybe the numbers can give us an idea who they would have gone to. But how does Renon Fomulifi get 7 votes out of 700? He wasn't close to the Masisi faction also.
Yeah, I think maybe the fact that he's been aware. Kana Balopi remember how much is an adule ko cabinet for whatever reason he
quit Ghana.
Quit, and that brought some sympathy towards him. Because remember 2019, Balopi played a critical role ko BDP or BDP le Remasisi batsene mo puso when I played a critical role. But to our shock and everyone else's shock, Remasisi then took Balopi to a very junior ministry, labor. So he was just there, and I think in a way people got shocked. Why would someone expect you in a state presidency?
He'd been vice at the time.
So
we thought he might have
exactly.
been.
So that caused some form of friction. Balopi has never come out officially to say why he quit. He has always dodged the question. And but the bottom line is that friction after Arsenal to Saruto Hotokobo Pakalani, Honaleba CKGR, Baneba Top, the tax shop, after all that sacrifice.
allegedly batho ba ba bone ka go bogoditshane ka kwa as
so
well.
after that sacrifice,
Yeah.
then you are given ministry one leave.
Ka re go batho ga ba bona dilo tse re di boneng rona wa bona no gona le batho hele ba sa ba qaveng go se ka di fukako.
So after that, there is a fallout. It was never admitted by Balopi, but behind the
Ramasisi
scenes,
was distancing himself.
Yeah, but behind the scenes, I'm sure the Democrats, so I think he got sympathy votes even at the time. I think if before 2024, an elective Congress, BDP, against Balopi, possibly he could have even beat Masisi to it because nanali that sympathy, but at the same time popularity Masisi kotas.
So with Mpho Molefi, we can just say it was because what he kept away for too long, so he didn't get his hands dirty. Because like I'm saying, Balopi, we can say the same thing about him. But I'm trying to figure out, people say politics is a dirty game. How do you go with buses filled with people? Feed these people that are around you all the time. And then 6. Why do they hate this man so much?
Well, I think it's also about convincing, because
he's not convincing enough, because he wanted to, like, I guess, structure something now, but who build you from the top. I think what he says, and also in his speech, acceptance speech, you know, it seems people don't want to break this thing completely down and search through the crevices and see what is really wrong. Whatever is already there, and then he will accept the 6 votes, what. But I could tell, like, you can tell, you can watch a brother, and you can see what this man is screaming in his head, or what did I do to these people? Because he tries so hard. So I'm also trying to understand, what type of BDP do they think that Balopi could bring that Molefi could never really bring?
Yeah, but also the resources. Remember the press conference that Balopi held a few days before Maun, when they have reached every cell in this country.
Yeah, his tour was
the minimal structure party. So if you are able to at least get 1 person per cell, you have good numbers. Yeah. So the question is, was did Molefi or Ami Makoba able to do that?
Yeah. Shish. BDP, I think it will also play itself out in the next couple of months. But just in closing it, though, do you think that, what chance do you think Mpho Balopi stands in 2029? I know this is a far-fetched question, but you know, I gotta ask it. You know, do you think he stands a chance of actually bringing the BDP back into power?
I think people are still angry with the BDP. If they are to make any changes, if they are to drop the UDC, they are likely to opt for the BCP. Yeah.
So the BDP and the BCP coalition, I think, because about why it would be a good idea for the BCP and the BDP to make some sort of coalition. Do you think that could ever happen?
Well, if it happens, it would be bad for both parties, because look, the psyche was on a hearing in 2019 when the Batswana said Harabate Ian Kham, and then the UDC went and did a coalition with Ian Kham. That's when they started dropping the UDC. If you have followed the trend, 2019, Batswana never lay into UDC until now, a point where Ian started campaigning on the southern part of the country. Because ideally he was supposed to just stick at central where he's chief and popular. But Ona did a mistake, and then that's how the UDC lost the 2019 elections. Because when Batswana ba re ga ba bate selo, usually they give hints about Didimal, and then on the election day, like 2024, I want to have and then next thing elections the ambulance.
I remember really more line in your the elections in the theater.
Across the country, it was like that.
No one was talking in
in
the
fact,
queue.
come Maune Rabona for the first time, le makgowa ba le mo line, le rona ba top.
No, hey, it was deep. Like, if they don't want you, they don't want you, you know. So, and speaking about Ian Khama, former President Ian Khama has been holding meetings with councillors, which the Ministry of Local Government and Traditional Affairs has deemed illegal. And I don't know what you make of this fight. I like to label it ski versus KFC. What do you make of this conflict? Who started it?
I think the issue, what does KFC know that we don't know as a nation? Yeah, because remember they are a state. They have access to intelligence information. They have access to plans where they can know what really the old man is doing. So the issue is, feel threatened. If that's the case, what does he know that we don't know? But then the next question then becomes, is Ski breaking any tradition? And then also, is Ski, what Ski is doing, would it work for or against the UDC? Because for me, honestly, depending on the partnership or the relationship they have with Ian, it could also work for the UDC or the government. Because as far as I have followed the statement that Khama had made, last year, he's going to try and mobilize resources to help with the issue of employment in that region. And if at all his meetings with the Kosi and councillors Tsako Central is all about that, then in a way is working, or he's likely to work in favor of the government. So the question then becomes, why then would the government minister be against that?
I'm asking you, dog. I don't know. Because as I see it, KFC and Ski are not from now. You know, they've had that relationship as president and union leader.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always really nice. You know, it was a very, very, bad relationship, really, because no one seemed to be getting what they wanted. Would you say that Reke Talifile is actually, revenging? Because now he's got the power.
Well, we are all human beings. If he's doing that, only time will tell. But the issue is, I've seen commentary from other areas like Remo Chotiwa, BDP, Gotlokwen. He made a statement that as far as he knows as a councillor, they've met with Khosi Gaborone to strategize for the village in Tlokwen. So he was actually supporting the idea of Ian actually meeting the councillors Bako Central. Yeah. I think where there could be question is, full district, about two full district, meaning that they no longer fall under central. The question Ian Khama is going to do me. What is he doing? Because he's not under his territory. So that could be the point of reference for KFC. You are pushing a political mileage, because already there are people who are alleging BDP. Ian can easily just go back to politics, rejoin BPF, and then go back to the BDP. Yeah.
Because I'm really trying to understand, okay, all these other courses, I'm sure, do have some, like you say, the one going, idea. Because we can't treat Ian Khama like any other course. You know, he's a former president of 2+ terms. I mean, handle or over, but you know, he's a very powerful man politically. He's not poor. You know, I'm sure he's wealthy. He's accrued some money for himself. Do you feel like the ministry, local government and traditional affairs, are jumping the gun? Get out from your observation, or they should just let this relationship go? I know what they have intelligence and there might be other things, but do you think maybe they're jumping the gun and they should just let this man try and help kids get jobs?
Yeah, I think one thing that Ian had consistently done is to try and work, at least post his presidencies, to try and work more favor. In case of a court case. In fact, it was shocking that his address to KFC even came through lawyers.
Through lawyers,
You could see how serious this matter is.
Yeah.
So I feel going forward, KFC Lene should make use of the Attorney General, the lawyers, so whatever response, whatever command ya bata go inela Ian Khama as a minister, because the act ya bogosi e minister in our local government above the khosi.
I remember Resier, like it wasn't it that time when he went go Khatling.
Yeah.
And then he laid it down more
Exactly.
Yeah. I wasn't really cool with that law. And there was an element of arrogance. Okay, how does Mudirala Puso become higher than a Khosi?
Exactly.
So what was the point of doing that in the first place? Because now here it is, it's created tension. When it was being done under Ian Khama's ruling, he was okay with it. But now here he is now clashing with something that he had been endorsing when it started. So was that a mistake? Making a minister a higher rank officer over Bogosi?
Yeah, but it could be, but also the issue the role ya Bogosi as an institution going forward, can we also have to have a conversation as a nation to say what role do we see it playing? As far as I know, if you can't answer that question, then the tension will always be there, depending on who is the minister, how hungry are they in terms of using the power. You just gave a good example, which is opposing say so you could see how interpret in so many ways. These are a lot of confusion, and at the end of the day, literacy level we are not always going to understand. The new government is also continuing with the harassment. If you can go online, you can see the clips during the presidency how some old women in Sorowe, those ways they were saying, they were very hurtful, because so
isn't this an example of karma though? I mean, I know people are going to get mad at me for saying this. Isn't this an example of karma? You did it to someone else in your administration, and now here it is happening to you, where now the powers that the Khosi think they have is now being subjected to scrutiny. An elected official, where now so I think what you say about us being able to have a conversation about Bogosi and its role in our society really needs to get a bit deeper, because I'm still confused. Bagolo usually they do have their meetings, but I never really see anything that comes out of these meetings that Bagosi have, except for the sponsored walk, the Toyota race. And now it seems like he's elevating that role. And people used to be comfortable with them not doing much. So do you think now no politician really is about to increase the power of Bogosi? Because they want that power for themselves because they have been elected by the people.
I think we're at a point where Bogosi should have been like the co-custodian culture. But if you look, for example, the ceremony Ian Khama at Khosi. One, to start with the Godirezoko Stadium.
It's about popularity. It's a popularity contest.
Maybe space, space, understand? Yeah, but also we saw, now I had expected maybe to see cultural music. We can infuse it. It's good because we are also saying re-embrace other cultures.
Yes, sir.
But Nahala, having been going that whole day, the whole ceremony, I was hoping to see that aspect,
the cultural aspect,
because so what I'm saying is that not just for Bangwate, but the Khosi where they should now be focusing more on what role can they play to preserve the culture? What aspect of culture can we use to actually mold the nation area better, without necessarily suppressing other agendas and other minority groups?
because your employment take care of the minister, Robert. So can I like just wrapping it up? But let's move on to DGB. Duma Boko has been president of Botswana for about 6 or so months now. Everything feels new. We're really enjoying it. Now, stories have come through that one of the administration's significant moves was finalizing a long delayed diamond sales agreement, with DBS increasing Botswana's share from 25% to 50% over the next decade. Now, this deal, comparing it to what Ramasisi had wanted, what is the difference? Like, why didn't the BDP says that the deal between them and DBS was the reason that they ended up losing popularity, and that's how they ended up on the other side. What is this difference? Isn't this always been about increasing our share, Botswana's share, more the sales agreement so the city existing?
Well, one of the allegations that the BDP have actually made through the former president, Ionia Tex, Korekana DBS wasn't making that signature because ba kolota Botswana tax.
Yeah.
And then the minister wa minerals le reboko habara I think it was in February.
Yeah.
Mass media they had said that as far as they know that issue was settled.
Yeah.
So but how level the press release that was made July 2023, September 2023, in terms of the key differences, Hakai shares and all that.
Yeah.
They are basically the same. For instance, the 1 billion development fund, the first year, and then they also added clause depending on the profits Botswana, DBS would also add something on top of the billion expect to every year. So those are the few additions. Unfortunately, this thing has been done so secretively over the decades, such that some of these details you never get, no matter how you angle your question, you never get the right answers for what went down.
Yeah.
Because the BDP through Masisi has actually come out to make allegations to say this is how we know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess DBS had a role in making popularity ya BDP dwindle because they knew that the UDC was going to bypass the tax question. So I'm always wondering why it's so difficult for us to get answers about these deals, especially because most countries make these things public knowledge. Is about Information Act, so we can have access to information. Like, why is it so hard to get information, Botswana, and like the minister
issue of freedom of information, which is why I think now the former ministers Botswana and the former BDP MPs, they are going to leave Botswana in the next foreseeable future, because why didn't we do this? For example, Balopi Malawana, we are the electoral system dirisang bona gore sky system sa ma parliament gore BCP in nile le ma parliament a mantsi go heta BDP. BDP only have four cousins, I guess.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of popularity, BDP itopileke batho ba bantsi ba hetang ba BCP gore ha o bala 1
Yeah.
But it's largely due to the electoral system dirisa, such that we now found BCP leone go take the main opposition party. Yeah. Ideally hana re dirisa a hybrid or another alternative gongwe BDP ka be le haijilwe ke ditop ka be le main opposition.
Yeah.
But all these years go ntse go tewa BDP go te change da. So the issue of freedom of information leone it's wa khakala. I remember go Russell Chando at some point even drafted the law, brought it to parliament it was rejected. And go drafta molao ga go cheap because we engage a lawyer about go charge per hour. I did that. I think a resolution was just for snitch or within the BCP, a pool of lawyers by I don't know about that. But hela bottom line corona dira molao some years back about this parliament thing o reject at the time Memutsumi, who was the minister was state presidency, the BDP had already drafted through the AGF already drafted a similar law. To date, it's been more than 15 years and we are still having this conversation. So this Freedom of Information Act, it had to send the sense that information any institution, I can actually get that information. Because South Africa, all those scandals, they happen because members of the public, lady journalists, banally the right to access your information whenever they want it. How institution you can easily approach the court at no cost and get that information.
Because right now, all of these things that they want now, they can't get, but they had an opportunity to give it to people. Wow, huh? Yeah, ne? It's like, yeah, well, you did it to yourself. So, oh, Mike, okay. How's that? Who's that? Yeah. Yo, no, my brother's spitting, man. Come on, Lord. Back up off me. I want to talk about the criticism that the UDC government is facing pertaining to awarding of direct tenders by bypassing open bidding. President Boko has defended this approach by citing concerns over collusion in open tenders. I just want to find out, Honor, how valid are people's concerns about this? Because this happened during also, I think, was during the state of emergency.
The mask,
where niggas were making millions out of masks, and the president was saying, yo, there's no time. And what's funny is that it was like a moment of deja vu when I saw Reboko saying it also at a Khotla meeting where he was saying, some of these things, process it, and he was saying it in a different way, but it sounded a little masisi like, yo, there's no time to be running around dealing with tender documents, waiting for this, and the other. Are the concerns that have been put together by vloggers and also some BDP members and other people about direct bidding, direct tendering, are these concerns legitimate?
I think they are fair criticism in the sense that the ruling party, when Baloko opposition, they at some point they actually spoke against the system, direct appointment, kana eba fila gore ki nepotism kana ki corruption.
A lot of it was though.
Yeah. So maybe what they did not extend at the time was to say because you can be against a system. I mean, you can be for the system, but who does the system because it's a procurement system globally is recognized a direct appointment elsewhere multinational but the issue is how do they do it and for what purpose and at what benefit because the benefit in a BDP na leone over the years we had resources, we had the government investment account fund foreign reserve
yeah.
So that's the advantage in the BDP alone, and that is what gave the opposition at the time the comfort to say, build a capacity, for example, Batswana over the years.
Yeah.
So the question was at the time, e thokagala after 12 months. Why should we use the direct appointment? Yeah, gore ka thairi. Why can't we have the Botswana bid for I mean open a bid for it so that Botswana ile gore o itse gore nya nna nka reka thairi ka e deliver e siameng o ka nna le opportunity eno, because it always goes back to the project, the agency project, the cost that we looking at the time. And one of the things that have not come out clear from statements ga Reboko ke gore a ona bua in reference to all the public works, gore a ora gore sengwe le sengwe, all the public works, whether ke internal roads, whether ke gore ke wa gapilisi, whether ke stationary, whether ke wine ko estate dinner, a ora gore sengwe le sengwe sa go dirwa ka go selecta kana go na le ha gore ga go nna le an open bid, because now I think people are just I'm yet to clarify that, but now I think people ba mo misquote. I don't think generally would mean gore sengwe le sengwe go dire direct. That would not that would also kill value chain in re bua ka yone, because some people ba specialize mo go tendering, tender boys who are actually making a living out of it.
Ba re imetse ba fana ba ba a go ba fana ba ba emepele la go re jeng no. But me Kora against this would be the time to do your net tendering, because now ka gore ga to go fair I get gore go tla bosa latelo the same guys ba go tembantse ba latelo these 58 years. So I think maybe that would be a good thing to let tendering be, because
it's an issue of just having a system in place. In fact, when the UDC came in power in November, I had a conversation with one of the ministers at the time in the cabinet. So one of the things that you can do actually from a human resource perspective, I mean from the wealth creation in Botswana, a site through which you can actually say renale tender ya go tsenya di bulb ko State House. So every Motswana itse gore very good mo go tsenye di bulb a tsenye profile ya hago, a showcase in that site ya government, a showcase why he's the best guy to gore ka gore ano re masisi o duile gongwe ene na rata bulb e khibitu. We are suspecting gore gongwe boko ta rata e gold. Ya no re batla go tsenya bulb enche. What should we do? Let's open a tender and say the best guy who can put Babu Ekaratu on State House at the say. Similarly for jobs, to say these are vacancies still day. Showcase why you are the best guy for this job. Such that we in 5-10 years we can actually have someone who can say before Rebo kwatse na mo office nane ke na le degree for 8 years ke sa berek me la tse na ona dira this system ile gore 90 rile gore ke file gore inclusive ka gore o butse up opportunities for all of us.
But Vic, this is where I am in the last 6 months, and I'm looking at the new government at all. I don't see it. I don't see anyone who's really like determined to create jobs. You know, this is what we're going to do differently. Oh, you saw how Trump walked into the building. His people were never about Project 2025 about it. They were ready. It was like when we walk in here, set up all of these contracts. By the time this man sits down to do the press conferences, we're signing all of the things that we want. So direct appointment does it only have to be about tenders?
But you know,
because I think he has more powers than that. To change things, to change even leading minister to get real change on the ground, instead of we're continuing with Chama, but we're just going to let you niggas hold the money. We're going to continue with the same things. Is still continuing. You know, I'm not feeling it, dog. Like I'm not feeling any change, like we've changed anything really. So I don't know how you feel about it.
I think the biggest challenge, like I said, the comfort or the discomfort the AUDC na leon ke gore believe me, you re gaola thatso ga phakela. His main worry now as we speak is gore a ta khona go duela di salary. So it's not about how am I going to create the extra job that I've promised, but also gore yo ke setse ke sign contract ka lene mo direla puso ke go mo duela ya. Because we are at a point where even a week before, it's not a meseram. A week before, the 26th October, he was at the debt market, Adi Mamad, for the salary, it's November.
Jesus.
the same thing since January, every month through the what is called government bonds. Gormente o raisa madi ko o adima madi ko stock exchange ko di bonds. And largely that money goes towards go duela di salary. So they in the meantime have to balance between go duela di salary to provide service ya gore ha o ya go renew tshipi ya go ya o mang. The guy who direlang tshipi ya go ma ba duetse gore ata khone gore a go service as a farmer, but at the same time try to run around, go to the meetings IMF jaka o to gone go terrain gaola thena ile teng ha le kwa o kopana le bangwenyana ba tsong go Europe ba re rena mme re ka la dima ka interesting yana e kotasi wa saena o tswa go saena gone kwa maloba so wa saena matsana yana ata, but at the same time is to try and say gore re duele di salary, but at the same time try to grow the cake. I'm always going to say this issue has the leaders, but also the psyche ya rona re le Batswana, to say we are trying to build a cake again. Re batla go dira legwinya again go re le rekise ka gore remember di temane ha di sa thwa di rekise. So now we are trying to rebuild economy ya rona through, say for example, try to do a fat cake so that re rekise legwinya. But Zimbabwe, Malawi, South Africa, Namibia le bone ba busy ba dira magwinya a bone. So the best strategy that we can do is to have human resource in place. That is why I'm always going to say, re tokanali human resource e good. Ye itseng gore ha ile gore ra pa le gunya la rona ka olive oil. Motho ya e ormiang ko tuck shopong ya gaska wa go reka olive oil, ga ye go reka sunflower oil. Le gone wa go taka 3 liters, not 6 liters. Because ha ka taka 3 liters rona re toka 6 liters. The time a boela kwa go reka an additional 3 liters. Zimbabwe ne ntse le gunya la yone. Yeah, le rekisa idira dollar because they can only be one fat cake rekisiwa. We are competing in a global space. So until we get it right with the human resource, our people need to know where we are just at the stage in the rediscovery in the 60s and the early 70s. So we have to have a mindset oring. Let's rebuild without diamonds. So how do we do that? We have to be minimal. So need cost it's a hore. This issue about on having ba take a rebo go travel at baba ngwa ba did that from perspective ya gore bone ba le billion expenditure ba feel gore go turela puso ka gore madi gayo.
I feel you.
Yeah.
So people then get mad about the watches. I get how rona re santse re bua ka gore re itirele dio tse re ka di rekisang tla go simola go bua ka di watch gore gore watch wa gona gona le saga. But like I can tell you have to go around the world to try and find partners gore re kgone gore re no competitive le rona.
But also there. Even the psyche la fa kana gompieno, if for instance bogolo ke nendo maloba ha le mo mathateng ka motakase, one of the things that I announce ke gore ba go oketsa the capacity ya the solar power kere go le thakane le ko Mau. Initially ya Mau I think it's supposed to be 250 megawatts, now it's going to be 500. And on the other side rebo ko ene are nna ke dumela ha le go kgagodi rile nna ke dumela gore ke le boko ha re tsa tshimu ya Motswana kana la hatshila Motswana a Motswana yano on top of the composition e re moenela anne a shareholder in that madirelo a leng ho ha le gore ke glass project Motswana nna shareholder ho ha le gore ke airport Motswana nna shareholder mo airporting ha le gore ke power plant e bogolo a dirang ko Mau batho ba Mau ba nne di shareholder gono. But the question is gona in our at government enclave, who is preparing Batswana for that? So that Halo Ndaba has gone around the country, Halo Bokolo and Boko have gone around the country. But wana Mara Bianya Babari Nyar Narkaletela Kadi solar power. Everenya Mera Hosa Timuhamed Motaberdira plant ya go eta caterla for Gaborone. But ba metsi mothabe a ba itse gore shareholder king, a ba itse gore dividend king, a ba itse gore ha o monela million ga o ye gore ka Land Cruiser kana Vrpa o tsena mo E1. Do they know that? Is someone preparing them for that? What have we about wherever hiring kobo Bank of Botswana kobo Sida elite ambassador hiring, do they do the right thing who actually prepare Batswana for that? Because wealth creation would not happen ka gore re tshela madi re kgaotse chama only. Ha o kgaola chama a meano batho ba Sida do they do everyday work mo mindset wa Motswana gore madi a sekoloto se o ne re sa re go roje madi umbe na re ka dira survey hela ya gore batho ba go kgaotsweng di ga ba go cancel di loan tsa bona tsa chema ba dirile yang ka madi a teng ba bangwe ka gore go tile go cancel they've actually used money on luxury but we are at a point where we can't afford luxury ha ke re batho ba ska ba nice you can nice yourself hale but you know that we are in a rebuilding mode so we have to now build and work more share the little resources that are there as a nation.
You know, every time when you mention or like we should be preparing ourselves and looking at ourselves as batho ba kona konyele yabo remasire, yo, this is not as it's about to get harder for us as a country. So we really need to be preparing ourselves for things like that. There are some success stories. I mean, the horticulture situation where we were now not importing from South Africa. Now we saw I love that you use that example. Fruit from your understanding as someone who reports on economic matters, why did they feel the need to take that back, that we need to keep importing vegetables and some of these perishables from South Africa when it looked like this was a move in the right direction by the former government?
Yeah, I think you are right to say nearly a good thing. But much as it was a good thing, the former government had missed one critical step, and that was capacity building the farmer. And it's going to go back to conversation in the conversation value chain. For how the border. O sonzora bo make sure for instance go bo mahete kwa halo go na le masimo o dirile access road I get le gore it's the produce from mahete into Molepo halo Molepo le kene the main center ko di famara di dropante so there is need for access road e sharp e le gore traka matshelonyana itatswa kwa isa nele breakdown to the center ko ba dropante. Secondly, the internet bana ba maletsi ba bata bo TikTok le boeng so a fresh graduate from accountancy college ha o re wa mo hira as an accountant ko famong gona le internet would be able to sign ka bonako. Mindset wa bone go gore ha go sena internet go sena TikTok
there's no life.
So the infrastructure, BDP or the former President Ami setting to develop the infrastructure, Eddie Famaradi Tokang, be it Yameti, cluster boreholes, where you don't need to harass Hormento, Dirlemunga CD Basaha. You can do cluster boreholes, Mwalamunga a tapper from that borehole, such that Yano Horare, Harir Laimo pulling hell, and then that would then up the produce and then affect the price because had the produce Ilikodim, Hora price Yakotas, consumer Hadi, Mongore, Kana pressure the new government in Elore, the produce they are due. But also it also capacity building ya retail gore o leska if we na ga o rate farming but o rata retail ona le spaces tshwanelese on the other side ki wine on the other side ki shelf ya ditamati but you are just here and you have another guy yo tsang ditamati gongwe ko farming ya me ko modipane a ditisa da but you need to be capacity through maybe see that to say tsa space go CBD da o tsenye ga te ke yona mang shop e ka hae
fruit and veg
haile ko rail park ni tsemuisinyana those things as a fresh produce you need them for as a retail you need them kidle se le gore di costa madi and you might need a cedar le gore ga e obsessed ka go punish the entrepreneurs e obsessed ka go ba build so that if you have passion ba ka go build over the years and saying when now on a passion in retail now we are going to fund you to gore o tse produce ya Batswana ine wena o e rekisa
we go thata go mo Botswana kana re vaeng ne bana re because like sometimes every single time we talk about our issues it's like it's getting harder and harder because we've really just relied on these diamonds.
Yeah, but the good thing, I don't think it should be a sad thing because import bill are like your opportunity. You never family no we are kind. If you read the letters to Savannah or to it goes back to now how do we transfer the wealth from the foreigners to our hands? How do we ensure that there's a big guy in town? One of the richest guys in town. On a lady shop I get a retail it's a So, but you see this guy comes out to a fintech. A fintech ki business ele gore gongwe o dira gore our cousins kozim haba transfer madi ba batla go isa madi back at home ba tsena mo shopong ya gage ona le this solution ba romela ka that
allegedly.
So but you know what, that is an opportunity for another young Botswana. So through SIDA, for example, SIDA, but they were meant to do that. This young Botswana can actually be funded and be developed in that space.
Yeah.
We can't have the same guy aloko dikukung tsa mai aloko o rekisa moringa khantele retail. So if you don't empower other people to move in those other spaces, or transfer the way. So
like I'm saying, like
but the opportunity. So I just need to now look at how then, without necessarily saying anything to this guy, how then do we ensure that we empower the other Botswana?
Competition authority can for what?
Supposed to do that, exactly. Good example.
Because like ever since the competition authority has been set up, all I see is matter between, but it's always like these big corporations against each other. But also, it looked like it was in an agenda nyana. So, and I'm like that. I would think basadi ba go bo mo ditshano kana ba berekisa mbo magwinya le ba ka tlogolelwa tsone dionyana tse dintsenyana gore ba khona gore ba itshetse di mausu di a tswalwa di shopo mmele gona go a bula go go apewang teng, but le tsone botlhako wa go itlhela go tsone di shipasele gape. So I don't know, have you ever tried to reach out to the competition authority to find out what do they do?
You see, bone bata gonela karabo yengwe go teng, we operate in an open market economy where ideas and capital just compete. So how bonehela hausa also dire what they call unfair practices. They're good. So that's why they went ahead and gave some of these big retailers the opportunity to acquire their competitors.
And that's all they're doing. They're buying each other.
Yeah.
And we don't have that type of capital as Rona, like Mogolo used to say, Batswana Baski. We don't have that type of money.
Yeah. And I know one guy who tried to get into the retail space, because now they just made sure something a discount and then house and go shop ya go tell the shelf di empty can't la go trend a picture mo Twitter le Facebook motako shop ya pa le nna le empty but ile gore ena ga na access ya discount but nana le initial capital ya go dira ya go hire go acquire that it was one of the leading brands in the country.
Oh my God. So guys, let's keep supporting our local brands. BK because like you never know how your name industrial espionage kana sabotage happens until motho a teng a go bolela no di biri go gongwe kwa a go bolela ka ene gore malaitia and but you know, there's a lot of really, really bad things that are happening too. But you know, they're seen as competition and then they're bought out. So I really hope there's a way that we can protect. And I'm speaking to the new government as well. Protect us, man. You know, previously was in business with some of these people. So we're expecting a clean slate.
Yeah, which is where they like criticism wearing like our president Ari ma parliament baska was a defense there. Yeah. People get angry at him. But look, this is what Boko is saying. He's saying mo parliament 2020 2021 there was a law no video citizen economic empowerment which was a brilliant law that was supposed to even add the title. Yeah. And then some of these so-called ponytails, but they went behind the scenes to the BDP, but make sure that law is toned down. They even changed the title at the Economic Inclusion Act.
Because naturalized Batswana.
So malawating obeyed. So what Boko is saying essentially, Harry mo parliament say Botseka defense theory. What he's actually saying is, "Mo parliament, go get that piece of legislation. Now that you are a member of parliament, at the time of opposition, now you're ruling party. You might still be opposition, but there's a new government in place. Go and get that piece of legislation, get it back to the level that we desired before Utonua down the naturalized Batswana. Present it in parliament, would accept it." And now I'm saying, let's get this man's challenge. I'm a parliament, but a challenge, yeah, this man. July Jakat's now, the legislative session ya parliament. Let's see a lot of them coming up ka melao e ba e bankanya at least e ka bulang ditsela tse dintsi tsa wealth creation ya Botswana. Such that re itse gore there's straightforward laws le gore di favor wealth transfer ya Botswana, because we are not saying let's chase the foreigners, but we are saying let them share the cake with the locals. Go ska ga nna ile gore ha ile gore go a bonala gore wena you can compete with them because they have a zaka ba make sure gore ba go sideline.
The 13th Parliament of Botswana commenced just after the 2024 general elections. How do you think they have performed in terms of enacting reforms and addressing the country's pressing issues right now?
I think they've been slow.
Thus far?
Yeah, they've been slow because, look, for instance, issue of land, that's the one that is actually close to my heart. Yeah, it's the same. But at a larger scale, look, one of the challenges that the president, I think, on 2-3 occasions has actually said was to say, what do we do at the land board? Should we do away with them and find a new system?
What system?
We can put a new system to say.
No. What type of system can we enact right now? But Batsadi Baba have been on there for years. I don't know if you are on the list.
Yeah, I've been on the list called Tawana Land Board for so many years.
Are you on the list? How to change? No, people are not going to get. How is there any other system?
We are not actually doing away with the list, but we are actually bringing in efficiency. That system would bring in efficiency, not just for generation Arona, but also for future generations. For example, one of the easiest way to allocate the lahats ke gore re dire land audit and say between Kang and Khanzir na le hatsile le sa dirisiwang le kana, between Molepolle and Shoshong gona le hatsile le kana, and then start documenting, says that how ngwana reach 16 ya go direlo mang, maybe 3 or 4 of those numbers, because they unique, they form a part of land allocation ya go ga re link le the database ya ko mang le ya ko la hatsing re itse gore rena le citizens tse di tsenang di le kae, land a piece of land available ke kae, so ba bona re tabere ba sotela out ruri ka ha ba dira o mang hela ene sa go go ta budula ha ba re no nna ke prefer go nela ko Charles Hill kana ko Tutume kana ko kae, because we then say you are entitled to one piece of land, at least in tribal territory. So that would speed up the process ya go up. So when I reach the entitled age, can issue or select the gore go kai. Mail or the demarcations and everything else is done. Believe me, you homeben what about duel long gore back how Hanela has about demarcate. What on from January to February back at Tawana land board. Why here like also Pagelaro or Dirai. I would say like since January to now, or May, Udirlay. May every month was our salary.
Right now, chair people across land boards must be a little scared because of what happened.
Yeah, they should be scared.
Because he didn't stay long. I don't know if the case is still to come through. And the chairperson of the land board, I don't know the details of the issue. So, do you think now there are going to be more whistleblowers? Because when I saw the new administration, I thought there would be more whistleblowers, but few. No one is really coming out to say, hey,
the scary thing could be that a majority are tainted.
But they have blood on their hands.
One way or the other, yeah.
Yeah.
You've aided corruption, and you know what, if that guy's hit, much as 99.9% when I would do like a tipo A, but still, hella how well
So a lot of people, I think, had this idea that with a new government coming in, you know, they're all just going to be kicked out, because a lot of positions, including parastatals, are government appointments. You know, a lot of the people who are heading some of our bigger parastatals, we're thinking are supposed to be heading up the PPP, I think in public
procurement.
Yeah. Why haven't we seen a harder tone from the government? You know, they know what is, most of them, permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, all of these people are political appointments. Uno to party one way or the other. That's why Hotile are ruined Vikwe. Hotarota na PSR. Executive directors, why aren't they being moved?
I think it's largely because the ruling party it's a renako intsi le gore campaign la gore e bula Batswana di matho to start with, and then also campaigning to get in office. And one of the things tse le gore gongwe ba neglect was to capacitate their people. As leaders, but they know what needs to be done and how it should be done. But some of the foot soldiers stubborn, like in a example, some of them private secretary, they are not capacitated to a point where they can know what to do and how to guide the ministers, or how to make the Royal Minister even easier.
Yeah.
Even simple things like releasing a statement on, say, World Health Day or on Mother's Day or whatever. So
they shouldn't be there. Some of them shouldn't be there. This is what we're saying.
Well,
it's just my homie. Yo, nersama moro masirumo recampaign moro. Does it?
Hey, but you know what? They could have actually rewarded them financially. In other means, but not necessarily with critical positions, because they are more critical positions. You can't play around with them. Your government communications, your PSs, your directors, and all that. So you need to have key people there by baka go thusa go Batswana ba tlhaloganya baka go thusa gore ha ile gore you made, for instance, UDC had made so many promises gore Batswana gona ba ba attack ka tsone. So you need someone who can then come in and say, prepare them to say, this is what is coming, this is where the delay is. The president does that brilliantly. So on high local di meeting what's a matter tlhalosa gore re promisitse bagolo madi a 2.5, right? Now we are at 1.8 because ga gona madi ko puso. That's a brilliant explanation. But we now need a point. We now need to have someone on daily basis ki tiro ya gagwe, not the president, to reassure the people, but to also build the patience and also to buy time while ndaba is globe-tropping abata madi gore goto go investiwe go godiswe the cake e sharewe. You need someone who then needs to say, Motswana go tile go dirwa solar power mo motseng wa lona, ra go tsa tshimo ya lona wa go nna investor, wa go nna every 12 months wa go nela million yo le ha monelo ga re reke Land Cruiser etc. Be able to get that million, buy shares go FNB ka gore gongwe wa re okay. Sorry to mention that bank, but
no,
yes, buy shares go a certain company because you believe or it's foreign owned, but still a cost exchange. That way you would have a bit of share from it. Bank in charge. Me at least 12 months now you are a shareholder. And this is the financial literacy that a lot of Batswana by Habana your name. Continuously you have to have a whole government communication department on daily basis on that the mindset, what do we need to do, when and how.
I wanted to ask about the Minister of Trade, because we've seen news about him not being in good Abigail, hana relationship e sharp le party or remu isitse ko wa bona kraya. Some people are saying, you know, since he is a member of the UDC, this means that this doesn't have any bearing on his position and his ministerial position. I don't know if you have any lowdown as far as Rentima's you know, current situation.
Hey, what happened is a few years ago the parliament in Achencha Malawa floor crossing, right? But one of
no because batho ba khona re batswe mo partying abatsa maka city ya gago.
But now hautswa ulusa your seat gonna le a by election di topo dia boelela.
That's why we saw ne mang dikoloti. Those are by elections or what were those?
No, with the by election no.
Oh, that was party stuff.
That was a party stuff.
Okay.
But what the same law, the same act is actually also saying is that highly party you get to keep your seat.
Okay.
So BPP jaka ikubile Ntima, he get to keep his seat. But if it was Ntima who had said, I'm quitting BPP, then we are going to have this level of parliament and recognize UDC. If it was Ntima Ari ki quita UDC, by election go Frankstown East. This is the same reason why Boris Aleshando didn't leave the UDC in the previous parliament, 12th parliament. Yeah. Although they had left the UDC, they remained under UDC ko parliament. Had they decided to quita UDC, molao no wa gore go nne le di by election ko di kgaolong tsa bone.
Crazy.
So horare o safe in the sense that party ke ene mokoba, so he can keep his seat. But also the UDC ka hantsing ka teng ina le mo goting direct membership e le gore ke ene ne tsere ke borre ke orapetse borre never tshabang bo borre tsere after ban le fallout le BCP. So gora gore Ntima can literally just say I'm applying for a direct membership ya UDC. Kana he can alternatively just switch to the BNF or the AP.
He's the kind of politician now, never understand politics. Like, why did they kick him out?
I never got to understand because they are new in office. Possibly the explanation that could be there is something it's just a personal issue. If there were to be new leaders, regional leaders, BPP, the next thing the man has been reinstated.
No, you never know because the dialogue guy puts out, because I don't know that many members except the old school members, but I don't know at the beginning of this interview, so I don't know that much about BPP, but we're about to wrap it up because Nagwarna sits it to a close. In the context of your Botswana political evolution, or someone who puts an eye on that, you know, what lessons can be drawn from the recent shifts in power, including the BDP presidency? You know, the treasurers, this is the first time I've seen a treasurer or a BDP is someone of Indian descent, you know, which is interesting times. You know, have they bailed out? Where are the guys?
They've taken, I mean, everyone wants to associate with the ruling party.
I saw the pictures, Vic. I didn't recognize anyone. Like, I remember there was a time where you recognize, oh, what is Singanga say?
Look, the dinner in
Nerebona Batu, Barba Travana, or Bona Petrice, Harbona. Now,
you know, those same guys you are talking about, go UDC Victory Party, they were there. Can I get 4 days late?
After they.
But wait until the UDC loses power.
What do we call those
same people? Baba UDC, and they will do the same thing.
But what do we call those people? Yeah,
they are vultures. I call them vultures. Hey. So kind of vulture I emela hela gore tauye bola eda ebe jaja says jang, and then it comes ebe it's a high nebe But
then that brings me
another opportunity.
This one
it doesn't work hard. It doesn't hunt.
Nothing at all.
Another animal.
What lessons can we learn from these shifts of power within the ruling party everywhere, man?
Yeah.
Seeing the Tapelo Rapete as the speaker, he does a phenomenal job. Shout out to him, man. Like our parliament is very, very dignified. And I heard he went and got his master's go Stellenbosch University. Shout out to our Stellenbosch Cabernet Sauvignon. But, you can tell he's a learned, really learned a man. And he wants to keep a house in order. And he's not taking sides. I don't see him taking sides like our former speakers as well. As much as we wanted it to be fair, you could tell sides were being taken here. So, what do you think this says about the evolution of leadership in our country after all of these changes have happened since October, the elections?
I think the literacy, this thing but no. So
I'm playing. No, guys are slow. I was going to ask you about the pool. But let's start with the leadership.
Yeah, so we need to learn lessons to say we have to prepare. Like leadership, start grooming. The reason why Mahasi are developed is because they identify by night a younger age, by groomer for certain positions. Really a pool, not necessarily one person, but a pool where we can actually now have someone we can easily pull a vacancy to fill up the gap. But Ronana assistance, the reason why BDP at some point they lose the gap. Yeah, the leaders, the emerging leaders, Bore Motswaledi, Bore Ntuane, Bore Motale,
Bore Winter.
So that's where the problem is. But also the psyche, the nation also, just to be prepared to how change. What do you need to do? Let's what exactly do you need to do to be able to benefit from that change? How do you position yourself without necessarily migrating to Gaborone? Because now we are at a point where economy arona, we might need to do the reverse of rural urban migration. The opportunities are on a diko komagaing la peri-urban area like Maungu is or house and a dollar anyana the tourists that is an andawa sokanyana. But
right across the road, one house from like the airport. You remember I remember back in the day when we used to perform in Maung, family homes. Now it's
there's a sad story from home. From one of the old men who are saying one of those complexes.
The house is right next to the road. So I don't know if that's a good thing. You know now urban to rural migration.
It's an issue. Okay, for example, there's one old man from home who sold his plot in a prime area. Complex.
Jesus.
And then he went and bought a Land Cruiser. This is a true story. He then went and bought a Land Cruiser. After a few years, in a small problem, he died depressed. But imagine if he was capacitated. How blame, but at the same time is the issue. When he was going to school, in terms of financial literacy, that is why I'm always going to advocate for financial literacy. Religious education. Let's say because Jeso ko Sunday school again.
Yeah.
So that part is covered.
Yes, sir.
But then can we then ensure that a bit of financial literacy schooling, so that, for instance, this old man hana level of understanding from that million invest in fact, to start with, the guys killing that plot I'm willing to move from this space, but I'm going to get a stake on whatever development you are doing here, but you are still going to give me cash. If those guys really see that as an opportunity or investment, they were going to agree to that. But Bonnet, they are just saying, they're looking for maximum for maximizing profit. So how about taba go ithela go gaona le sedi ba go nela the madi a wishi o tsena mo go ditshane o reka 7-seater
ka tikila thula wena o itse o bona ipentile
can I talk a timing belt
dog
within 6 months you talk a timing belt and then you are gone. So hanne le gore no o tsere stake in that complex, even if you die from your will, they're going to get that. Yeah. So imagine those complexes along the airport. And all the people before they moved out. We could be saying Ranali wealthy Batswana.
Yeah.
But until we are at a point where we actually have proper investment. To be wealthy, we need the whole of CBD. It could be you regular stake in this winery company here.
Yes,
it's a very small stake in a way, and it's your way 12 months check it and you can now use it maybe school.
And you can grow from that. The same thing is happening in Mogoditsane. Majita are selling their properties, their parents' houses, like Bodeth, ba rekisa boswa ba rekisa be batho ba ira di netana ga tikiding di dealership ba rekisa dikoloi mo di jarateng. Now you can buy a car in a residential area go mo Goditsane because a lot of these kids don't have jobs, and then they think the best way is okay ga go rekisa le bozi la batsadi ba me, I can create some capital for myself. Kante wa suga hela otlhe ya ka o butla le di Brazil le gore le bagolo le bone ga o rekisa senela ruri ya ka plot tota. What do we think is going to happen, you know? So please guys, let's just be calmer, you know. And actually to give a ranking, my guys like it when I give rankings here. Who do you think are some of the best performers as far as parliamentarians so far in our thing in our parliament, in the 13th Parliament of Botswana?
Outside cabinet.
Yeah, because cabinet I get ministry so outside of that, because some of these names I don't remember that well. I think maybe I just stopped listening to politics because so I decided to just let it go. But I'm paying attention a lot more now, especially because of the legislative one that's coming up. But so far in this first round, who do you think, out of 5, who do you think are your best performers?
I think the likes of Bo Arfat Khan, basically because of the Horenelemo Councillor for the longest, but also he's been in politics. So attached to the lives Tabatu, the likes of Penyo Sokoko. I know what he did a session for the first time in our country after budget speech. A week after Ona did a session for Baatweng, just to bring up cabinet ministers and the business community to break it down for Baatweng what the budget means for them, what opportunities are available, which is what we actually need for the leaders. Just 2 weeks ago, I also saw Monacheng in Molepolle also did an economic forum that is largely to explore economic opportunities within Kweneng district. So if those were to be maintained by tangible results, where now we see BITC, SIDA, Banna active, Kweneng, Barutawana, the drop projects, some of these cases because of proximity to the city.
Yes, sir.
So
not really, that's what my beef is usually with the MPs. No, Brazil, because no, I mean, right now in Molepolle, if you don't have like a thing, a Jojo, and yellow or it's electrified, or but there's no water in Molepolle. It's very, very bad. And I like when the MPs of Molepolle, it's close to my heart because I'm from there, okay. And I like what they talk about and other things, but I wish water would be primary to them, A lot of the sponsored walks that I did for Remo Ryan Totawa is because I thought it was bringing the water. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting here still waiting to see what North South Korea. It seems like it's not being complete, and it wasn't being done just the other day. It's 10 years deep now. So hariboni la ile sepesele gore se tsiraga. You're left for 2, Papa.
Yeah, so and then there's Bo Re Lucas on the BCP side, because of the institutional memory, le gore ke di academics, baba well researched.
Yes, sir.
Ha minister Makakwa, they can be able to measure in terms of the deliberations they do. I think that's why even the president haile ko parliament once in a while amo mention gore when I look at 2029 when I on ladies o wata gore ke thopie gape is largely to appreciate what the role is doing, but obviously you can't make that list the boss tsenye re dumelang Salshando mo go yone. He's doing a good job. I saw on his Facebook page gore o ta semolla go dira write-ups to teach people or to teach Batswana ka the role ya opposition, so that ba tlhaloganye gore ha a ganetsa khotsa a critique the government is merely doing his job. He's not being jealous to the president or to the government. Same thing I've seen Reko Rapet's idea. He has a column at the Sunday Standard now where he explains literally everything, where standing orders king, opposition leader odiraing, chief whip king, title the new one, baby of the house or something like that. So yeah, he explained that.
You better.
Yeah, he did that to explain what mother of the house king. Remember we used to know what Bomma Vincent what the mother of the house.
Yes, sir.
Literally king. So he breaks down that on weekly basis, more the weekly column. So I saw Salashando Ari Wahodira just
because they were attacking Loago. Because
people,
people were all over Loago, and like shout out to him. He's really keeping the youth interested.
Yeah,
in
imagine
a lot
if we had maybe just 10 Loagos. Yeah, just 10 Loagos.
Because why
five gents, 5 girls.
Yeah,
who can actually match that intellect at their age. We can actually go retire.
No, but my only thing is that like Obana Freedom Square, it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? He's got like that awkwardness that his dad has. How we are about. The
charisma.
Square, but like when I saw him talk, I think they had won like an election called Biak ABM. Yeah, because he had won Go BAC and then he lost, and now he's going around helping other BCP, SRC. Yeah. So, hey, public speaking, I don't know how the youngsters can try and switch it up. You're not supposed to always just be screaming, and which is why I think we never really get the issues. Go Freedom Squaring. You know, Go Freedom Squaring it's like a rap battle. It's like who can diss this guy the most. So I wish like this is for them. People, I think this is the opportunity to change the Freedom Square into a place where people can actually engage and listen to why we're voting for this dude.
Yeah.
The reasons.
Which is the role that was played by the then student politics ko UB when we were there, Mass BNF GS26. All these people, Boko, Bo Saleshando, Bo Duani, across the political parties.
Who else?
Yeah, their products are student politics. That's UB.
Nelson Ramautan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like old school.
Exactly.
Every one of those guys came through that where people were talking the issues. And you don't just vote for someone because it's a numbers game. It's about what are you going to do for our community. And you hold them accountable to make sure that they do exactly what they said that they were going to do. You know, or they're not going to get you a clap on next time. You know, so. I
the
really
student
appreciate
politics sadly is Sule, because now even if you have like lectures, for instance, go UB ba strike, kana rona ha ma lecturer ba strike ne re ba nela 2-3 days ebe re sa ba theke be re ba join go re ke right ya rona re dinaiwa right wa bona but ba gompieno ha ma lecturer ba bone ba strike ba ya go TikTok wa bona. I'm not attacking them, but that is the attitude ya bona gore my lecturer they don't actually can't connect the dots. My lecturer ba no work no pay. That means ha ba tswakwa ba tsile go simola ha curriculum ine sonzo re tsamete nice student go I've missed, but because ba lwantsha puso if I join them I'm happy myself because that was the attitude back then.
Yes, sir.
So we need to groom bolo ba bantsi as leaders, but also as recipients of information who can critique information. Kore di ba hape maletse ba lagi ka gore the digital trace a thing.
Yeah.
The reason one of the downfalls of Haramasisi due to the people were recording. So Hara na kisi ki bue yalo.
It started with Lelope. And it's like he thought we didn't see it.
Yeah.
And he thought he could word his way around it. But shout out to all the young people out there who are trying to conscientize other young people about politics. Because Mampizi once said something here about politics where, even if you don't get involved in politics politics is going to get involved in your life one way or the other. Because
tertiary students UDC had promised us allowance at 2.5.
He can't sleep. I get he's thinking about the 2.5. I saw a clip where the president was saying he's actively thinking about that 2.5.
So that's where the student movement comes in to actually put pressure on the leaders. Has to say economy as much as better. And this is why we feel we need to be prioritized if they feel that's the case.
Yes, sir. I know. I really, really appreciate you guys. That's our show for today. Shout out Mr. Victor Baatweng, who is a regular contributor for the biggest newspaper, because I buy it all the time, in Botswana, Sunday Standard. Actually, I've been meaning to ask about deadlines. When should you have a story? Let's say this is a week. We're on Wednesday today. Do you already have your story right now?
No.
Just break it down for a little bit. How does it work? Because I get anxiety just thinking about who am I going to get on this damn show?
Yeah.
And is it going to be worth it? And it's been worth it, by the way. So how do you guys work? Especially for someone who your opinion, people are always looking forward to those pieces. So how does it work on a regular week for anyone who aspires to be?
It's kind of the problem that you're also competing with other journalists in other newspapers.
Yes.
So even if I can have a story, walk from here with a story, right? But when you are working for a newspaper, it's on Wednesday. I mean, Thursday. I front page.
Yeah.
So to me as a Sunday guy, is no longer a story. So I either have to do an in-depth or find totally new story. So that's why traditionally we then would even work into your 3 a.m., 4 a.m. because now we had to see the week out and then get the best left over and then work on them to see.
But people are still buying newspapers. People who do what I do think that radio and newspapers are dying. Can you please tell them to wake up and realize that it's not happening? Newspapers are here to stay.
Yeah.
So there's no oh my God, there's no one buying papers. People are reading.
Yeah, people are still reading. There are people who still want to do the field. Yeah. And then there are obviously those who just want to use the digital gadgets to read through. So it now goes back to the owners by this media enterprise, because whether we like it or not, but more enterprising, more businessing. So if they have to now balance, to tell you the truth, there used to be a point where leading newspapers in the country, not a disclaimer, not ours,
never
but there used to be a point where newspapers would sell up to print up to 30,000 copies per week. Now we are speaking something just above 10K or even less than 10K.
Yeah, ne? Victor, I think I think that's the end of our show. But thank you so much. We look forward to you being a regular here because you help us at least already touch. Shout out to Bra Spencer Mogapi as well, and we really, really appreciate you guys. That's the end of our show, coming at you from SMCG House of Wines. This is where we come at you every single Wednesday. This beautiful picture here was drawn by none other than Ronald K. Homuditswe. Yeah. Ke twin ya Ntonga. Yeah, but you can look him up.
Chef.
No,
they are the twin.
The chef is the twin. This is the
Ron
attitude.
the artist.
Ron
This
is the
Ron the
artist,
artist,
yes.
so, yeah.
So Ron the artist, I said the whole name. Ron the artist, you can always come and check out some of this great art. It's all over House of Wines. The young people are doing it for themselves, man. So please, while you're tasting the wines, make sure that you check out the BW art. This is what my man here was talking about as far as value chain. We have Botswana products, Maungo craft. This one is all over, like, it's international, guys. So make sure that you check out all of this dope stuff right here at the CBD. I said world. What did I say? I said House of Wines. Sorry. A world of wines. Why did I say house? Yeah, guys. Yo, I know why. All right, I'll see you guys next week. It's been dope. Shout out Local Corner. Remember to like, subscribe on the page. And guys, if you want to advertise on the Podicast, because I think now we're not too proud to start asking, right? Yeah, podicastwithscar@gmail.com, podicastwithscar@gmail.com, and find out how you can advertise on the show so that we continue to give you great content. Remember, the Ponesa link is right here. Yo, make use of it. Get that airtime, get that BTC airtime, that orange airtime, and also the BPC Mutakase. Guys, that's it. It's been fun. We out. Peace.
People of different identities. PODI-CAST with BCP.